Coming to you direct from Silencer Shop Studios, home of the Glass Case of Emotion.
SilencerShop.com, the easiest way to buy silencers online, period.
Stand by for education, enlightenment, enjoyment, and entertainment.
He's not here to talk about your feelings. He's not here to say what you want to hear. He's here to say what needs to be said.
Ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages, please welcome your host, the pimp hand of America, Professor Paul Markle.
Jared, do you know who I feel bad for? No.
There's so many things that I could say.
Rhetorical question, yeah. No, actually, who I kind of feel a little bit bad for is the people who are not taking advantage of watching this show live.
Yeah.
Or not watching it on YouTube, or you can watch it later. I mean, if you just discovered this, you're like, I didn't get a chance to watch it, because that intro video that Alex put together is so super sexy that if you're not watching it, you're missing out. You really are. So I'm just saying. Welcome to Wednesday's episode of Student of the Gun Radio.
And people live are like, what?
What? Welcome. Well, whatever. This is the Wednesday show, and we're recording it right now in our studio. Hi, everyone. And if you guys would like to watch if you're listening to this on Wednesday on iHeartRadio or iTunes or you name it, your favorite podcast application on your phone or laptop or tablet, well, you can go to the Student of the Gun Facebook page or the Student of the Gun YouTube page. Or if you're a grad program member, you guys should know by now that you can listen live every time we do this on this little thing called Discord. And you'll get a notification. And who's live right now? Who's live in our audience? Drew Weil is live. Jules Dash is live. Brad Barr. Scott Dash. Shield. So, hey, all you freaks. All right, we've got a special guest with us today joining us live via satellite. And his name is Robert Luigi, and I believe I pronounced that correct. Did I not?
You did.
I did.
Will you put him up on the thing behind us, Zach?
All right, I figured I'd give him some main screen time.
Buddy.
Too.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
All right, so the reason that we have Robert is a grad program member. He's been with us for quite a while, and the reason that we have him on today is because he had a situation. There was a situation where he had to unholster to hold onto a gun in a live situation, in a real situation, and not unexpectedly, he was charged, but we want to talk about all that happened to him and what can you freaks out there learn from what happened to him, right? Because we don't want to, we don't want to make mistakes, and we want to do things right.
Yeah.
Now, first and foremost, I'm going to put you on the spot, Robert Lucci. Had you, prior to your incident, had you watched the Armed Living DVD?
I had.
Aha! Good job. And just as a aside, after things happened to you, did you realize you're like, that kind of played out like my training had told me it was? Did your training kick in? Your previous training kick in?
My training kicked in spots, and then there was things that happened that were absolutely unpredictable. And so that told me that I need to ingrain my training better.
You've been to more training since that.
I have.
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah. I need to take a minute to commend Mr. Luigi here, because after that incident, it was pretty quick after, like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and schedule these training classes. And he went, and you can see the certificates behind him. He went to our friend James Yeager's place, Tactical Response, and got some training. And he actually you went for a fighting pistol, and you ended up staying for what?
The fight and rifle?
The fight, immediate action medical, and fighting rifle.
Wow.
So all four of those certificates right there.
Yes.
So did you stay in the team room?
I did.
You stayed in the team room. For those of you that don't know, James is kind and benevolent, and he has a team room where you can stay free of charge, but you have to ask Marilyn. When you sign up, you have to ask Marilyn if you can, because it fills up and there's only so many slots. All right, Robert, go ahead and you actually talked about this on James's show, so you're very well practiced by now telling your little story. Go ahead and start us from the beginning. What happened to you, and how did it go down, and so forth?
So this was the weekend of Hurricane Florence. We were ground zero for Hurricane Florence, by the way. So we were out walking around our neighborhood looking to see what was going on. There was an individual who I had some issues with before who had made some threats against me. And I encountered him, let's say. During this encounter, two of his neighbors felt that they needed to get involved, and that is when things kind of took off. And I had warned them at one point as they were advancing towards me, you need to stop, stay back, leave me alone. They did not heed that advice. At one point I had, I believe, 4 of them that were actually attacking me. And I was okay until a certain point in the altercation where I felt that I was going to be knocked on my back. And that's when I became fearful for my life. I drew my firearm, and that immediately de-escalated the situation. I guess there's nothing more demotivating than someone pointing a firearm at you and trying to stop you from doing what you're intent upon doing. But they stopped. I was able to get out of the situation, get to safety. I made the 911 call after I had left the situation, and I'm not sure that I was the first person to the phone. In fact, I believe they had actually got to the 911 call before I did. Mm-hmm. But after I had left there, I'd come back to my house, and I was awaiting the deputy sheriffs to arrive, and I made that call to USCCA and reported the incident, filed the claim, and got the process started. I got off the phone with them. The sheriff came, took my statements. There was not a lot, because of the hurricane, there was not a lot of attention, I guess, that they wanted to pay to this situation.
Yeah, they had a lot on their plate.
They did, and they were very shorthanded because a lot of their deputies were not able to even get to work because of the way the flooding was in our area. So they were very busy. So they took their report and left. And after I had talked to them, I came back in and I had emails from USCCA, and they had sent me already a list of attorneys that I could start talking to. This was a Sunday afternoon, and I started down the list trying to find an attorney. Now, the tricky part at this point was I was not charged with any crimes, so they were kind of at a loss as to what exactly they could do, but they decided that they needed to help me with an initial consultation so that I could figure out how I needed to respond to this.
Right, get your statement. And
so this is prior to, you said no charges had been filed.
No charges had been filed at this point.
Okay.
Right, no charges had been filed at this point. There was a report taken, there were some pictures taken. I had some injuries, and so there were some pictures taken of my injuries, and I had a brief conversation with the deputies, probably more than I should have, but I did have a brief conversation with them. And then after I had talked to them, and I was going down a list and talking to attorneys, I did find an attorney who was willing to help me just by giving me a consultation on what I needed to do next, what my next steps were. And so my next steps were to identify 2 of the individuals. I didn't even know who they were, but my next steps were to identify those individuals. And I actually wrote an affidavit and took out assault charges against them. And at this point, I had done what I needed to do to file the charges. And what I didn't recognize at that time was just how emotional and what the emotional impact this whole event had on me. I had to rely on my wife to say, hey, you need to see about getting some therapy or something, because it had really impacted me. And let's see, it was about 3 weeks after the event, I was informed by the assistant district attorney that there had been also charges taken out against me. And so now here I am having to go to court and not represent myself, but basically
defend
appear
yourself. Yeah.
Well, but at this point I was going as the defendant, mm-hmm. and also as
the complainant,
and then as the defendant as well. So we have this all going on one day. So once the charges had been filed, I got an attorney, and I actually did not get one off the USCCA list. I found one locally that was very familiar with our court system and the individuals involved, and actually knew the deputies that took the report. So I felt this was going to be my best chance for defense. And as it turned out, he was able to help the individuals involved understand that the dismissal of the charges would be the very best road to take, which I was perfectly okay with. I wanted the thing to end. Yeah. I didn't have, there was no reason at that point to say to take the hard line and say you must prosecute these people. I mean, I feel that I protected myself. I did what I needed to do, and I wouldn't hesitate to do it the same way again.
Yeah.
And the USCCA was there the entire way for me. They have a critical care team that you can call 24/7, and believe me, I was calling them.
They're like, man, we know this dude now.
Yeah.
I've got two questions for you before we go any further. One, you said that you chose an attorney that was not on their recommended list. And so that's an option. I didn't realize that.
Yes, that's absolutely an option. And they will, they'll make payment at whatever attorney that you choose.
That's pretty cool. And then the second thing is, and if I ask a question and you don't feel comfortable answering it, that's totally cool. Just say, I don't want to answer that question.
Okay.
Do you mind going through how you selected the attorney? Like, what criteria did you look for?
So, yeah, we can go through it. When I called down their list of attorneys, if the attorney answered the phone on a Sunday, to me that was kind of a red flag. I felt like, well, this guy's probably not that busy. He doesn't even have an answering service. So I felt better if there was an actual answering service. And these are just my own internal filters.
Yeah.
I got to an attorney who I left a message and she got back to me immediately. Others, I would leave a message with their answering service and they wouldn't call me back for, 24 to 48 hours. Okay, I'm not interested. There was one that was able to get back to me fairly quickly within an hour, and she was a great attorney. She did a very good job for me for the consultation, the initial part, helping me write the affidavit that I had to present to the magistrate in order to pursue the charges that I was filing. And so she did an excellent job with that. When it came down to the attorney that I chose to actually defend me, this came it sort of came in pieces, because prior to getting the criminal charges, they had also, some of the people involved had tried to take out a no contact order against me too, which failed when they took it to the magistrate. They didn't even get their emergency temporary because there was no evidence that this was necessary. So I had another attorney that I was dealing with. So I had attorney one who helped me fill out the affidavit. I had attorney two that I was going to have help me with the civil part, which was the no contact order. And then I became aware of the criminal part. So then at that point, I decided I need one attorney for all of it. Mm-hmm. So there's a guy in my area who has a very good reputation as being an excellent defense attorney. And so I actually contacted his office and I went with him, and I'm very glad I did. The USCCA, like I said, I mean, there was some waffling back and forth on the different attorneys and stuff like that. They took all of that in stride. Their mission was to ensure that I was comfortable with my defense and that I had everything I needed to recover from this event.
Right. And something that if you're listening to this and you're like, man, this is horrible, and I hope that never happens to me, and maybe I shouldn't carry a gun. You should carry a gun, but you need to understand that in the world that we live in the country that we live in, there's no guarantee that you will not be charged. There's no guarantee that you won't be sued. And in your mind, you're like, I'm the good guy.
Yeah.
I did everything right, and these vile, nasty, scumbag pieces of crap are now playing the victim card. And I can tell you that more often than not, when you, Larry Hickey, Doug Arnold, who you're listening right now, well, I have 3 friends, and I consider you guys my friends, that have all had to draw their guns to stop people, and it wasn't a flat-out robbery. It wasn't a gas station robbery. It wasn't a stick-up in a parking lot. It was from brutish or bully behavior. Mm-hmm. And I believe that most people, when we get our CCWs, we get our guns, we go to the shop and we pick out Hydra-Shocks and Kimbers and we got all this stuff, we formulate this idea in our mind that if I ever have to use this thing, it's going to be I'm walking across the parking lot to my car after shopping, or I'm, taking my wife to dinner and a guy comes out and he's like, give me all your money. Yeah. All right. And you say, well, that's obviously a cut and dried self-defense, or I'm in a gas station and I'm paying for my gas and some guy walks in and says, stick 'em up, and I'm like, no, not today, Joker. But the truth of the matter is, in at least 3 cases of people that I know, that wasn't the case. It wasn't robbery. It was bullies. It was bully behavior. People, attacking them, not because they were trying to rob them or because, they were sticking up a gas station, but because they were, quite frankly, legitimate bullies. And, and I wrote an article. You remember the article I wrote? I said the other bad guy for NRA.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's how we need to understand that there are social bullies who have grown up and they've spent their entire lives pushing people around, being obnoxious and rude and nasty, and they're used to just running people over. They're used to getting their way. They're used to picking on people, to bullying them, and so on and so forth. Right. Road rage. Your road ragers are bullies. Okay? You're the neighbor who's always messing with you about your grass or your trees or your dog or whatever. That's a bully. And they expect fully to just be able to run over you because that's what they've been doing.
Yeah.
Their whole lives. They've been taught that most adult American humans are nice and gentle and reasonable and don't want to get in a fight and so forth. And they just take that and they just bulldoze right over you. So there's 3 cases that I'm personally aware of people that I know that had to pull out their guns and use their guns, not because it was a crackhead trying to steal their wallet in a parking lot, but because it was social bullies. And those people, bullies, are also cowards. The moment that a bully realizes that he can't bully you, then he tries to put on the victim garb. He tries to put on the victim cloak. They're like, this guy tried to, shoot me. I'm just a poor victim. Oh, look at me. If you guys, and a lot of you guys out there have neighbors and so forth that are like this, and you know these people. And, like, if your dog craps in my lawn, or if I see your dog again, I'm going to shoot it, and stuff like that. And what do we normally do? We normally like, oh, that guy's a jerk, and I'm just going to stay away from him. But, Robert, you said that they were familiar with these people. Is that correct?
Yes.
That the law enforcement, it wasn't like they'd never heard of them. They were familiar with the behavior of these people, right? Now, I
believe they were.
Had you previously filed any kind of complaints or anything? Was anything on paper?
No, because I've always been one that I handle my own business, and I've never found myself in a situation where I've been assaulted and the odds were so unfair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were so many of them that felt that they needed to be a part of this situation.
That's what happened to Larry. He was in his driveway,
Yep.
and 3 people came up and were going to attack him. Well, this may not, and that's what people do. We good reasonable people, we don't want to run to the cops. We don't want to be the tattletale or whatever. But here's the fact of the matter: if you have a dispute with a neighbor or coworker or whatever, and it's getting heated, or they're like, your dog comes in my yard again, I'm gonna shoot it, or whatever, that kind of a thing, and you're like, oh, okay, I'll just stay away from that guy. When it comes to a head. And as somebody who was a police officer, I saw this over and over again. When it comes to a head, you're going to say to the cop, or you're going to have your attorney say to the cops, like, this is a pattern of behavior. And this guy has been harassing my client, and then they, said, I'm going to shoot your dog, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. And it's been going on and on. And the cop, the cop's neither good nor bad. They're neither angel or devil. They're just there. And I would have people say, oh, this has been going on for, months or whatever. And I'm like, then why is this the first time I'm hearing about this? And when it comes to court time, what's going to happen is there's this little thing called discovery. And you're
like Land Rover?
Yeah, like a Land Rover. No. So their attorney, your attorney, like, let's say there is 3 or 4 complaints and this is what I tell people, like, look, even if the police say they can't do anything, right? You say, hey, this guy, blah, 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 said this. If your dog comes in my yard again, I'm going to shoot it, blah, 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 blah. I got a gun. Don't mess with me, whatever. And you call, you file a number. You call the non-emergency number and you say, hey, I want to file a report. And the guy comes out and he's like, well, there's not enough for me to do anything. That's fine. It's on record. It is on record.
Yep.
So in the future, if you ever have to draw down on this joker and say, stop right there, don't go one more step, and they will go back. The attorneys are like, well, you see here's 3 times in the last 6 months that my client tried to get help, or so now it's not just your word against theirs, and their attorney will say, hey, here's the deal, dude. This is the discovery. This is what I found. Is this true? Did you say to him, I got a gun and I'm not afraid to use it. I'll punch your lights out. I'll bust your nose. I'll whatever. And they were like, because this is all going to come up in court. Mm-hmm. When we go to court, if you want to push this, all these reports are going to be read in open court, and it's not going to make you look good. So, and I know reasonable people who want to take care of their business. You don't want to be a crybaby. You don't want to be a snitch or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, when this goes down, the bad guy, and we even see it during robberies in the United States. We see people that get smoked during a robbery, and their mommy and daddy come out and they're like, oh, they were a good little child, and they never want to hurt anyone, and they just need to get money for clothes to go to school, blah, blah. They're always when they get caught and stopped, they're always the victim. And we have to confront that. We have to deal with it. We have to understand that in this country we live in, that is a sad fact.
Yeah. And
the best way to get ahead of that, to stay ahead of it, is to document it, is to do everything like Robert did. So in the end, they decided to drop all the charges against you.
They did.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, they did.
And
how much money out of pocket were you?
Oh gosh, for just the event, I was about $500 out of pocket, simply because the the civil attorney that I had to have was not covered by the USCCA,
right,
because that was a civil summons.
Yeah.
All the criminal stuff was covered in full by USCCA, and it was done very timely and without any hassle at all. In fact, I never, in some of the cases, when I had to go out of their network for the attorney, I actually had to pay the attorney, and then they overnighted a check.
Yeah.
Yeah, they overnighted a check to me. But other than that, I didn't even see the money transactions on the other attorney.
Wow.
So
that's great.
It is.
Yeah. And so we've got 2 calls to actions. Robert, do you have anything else to add?
The only thing I'll say is that after I stopped their attack, they were absolutely, as Paul had mentioned, they were absolutely indignant that I had the audacity to pull a firearm.
Stop them. How dare you? You just have to let us do what we want to do.
And then they told me I was crazy.
It's like, for what? Protecting myself?
Yeah, how dare you?
Yeah. For not allowing them to do what they were doing. I was crazy for having a gun.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing you did, man, because you don't know what would have happened if, that stopped it. You didn't have to actually use the gun, but if you wouldn't have had that, you don't know what would have happened.
Well,
no,
and
I don't.
If you ever read the NRA's magazine, if you guys ever take the American Rifleman or American Hunter or whatever, in the front they have all these stories, and I don't know if they still do or not, but they used to, all these stories about after actions. And the vast majority of the time, this is what the media doesn't care about, and they'll never report. The majority of the time, firearms are used without being fired. Most people who use firearms to defend themselves do so without having to fire a shot. Now, that's not saying, I was trying to find my notes. My computer blanked out, and I was trying to pull my notes up on my phone. But that's not saying that you shouldn't, okay? Don't ever think, well, I'm just going to carry a gun and I'll point it at people, because what you had 3 or 4 type 1 attackers. And did it occur to you after that all went over, did the armed living thing come flushing back in your mind? You're like, oh, those were the type 1 attackers. If I defend myself, they'll stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. It absolutely did, because I spent a lot of time reflecting upon the knowledge that I had now, that I would not hesitate to use the force necessary to stop an attack. I think we go through life, if you haven't been in a situation like this, I think you'd like to think that you're going to do what you need to do, but I don't think you really know that until you've actually been faced with the situation. And I refer to that as an uncomfortable truth. And so I spent a lot of time reflecting on the fact that it was fortunate for everyone involved that they were that type 1 attacker and that they were immediately demotivated by the presence of my firearm.
Otherwise, and here's the thing that I want to stress to you guys, and we'll let Robert go, and I appreciate your time, Robert. But the one thing I want to stress to people is that you need to understand that it's your job to be prepared to deal with bad people, to bad situations, bad people, bad things happening. It's your job to be prepared. It's not your job to make decisions for them. The decision on whether to, like in your case, it was a psychological decision. They made the decision to not continue their attack. People are like, well, what if they would have? Then I would have been wrong. No, it's not. You can't stop them.
Yeah.
You can't change their minds. All you can do is what you're ready to do. And if they continue, that's on them. If you would have had to smoke these jokers, then it would have been their fault because they continue to do it. You gave them the opportunity. Did you yell Shazam?
I did not yell Shazam, and I was not unhappy with anything that I said because I had some knowledge that I wanted to be very mindful of not saying something, that would be inappropriate and that might come back to haunt me.
Right, like
if this did have to go to court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back off, Mother Fletcher. But
yeah, exactly.
Did you yell stop?
I did.
All right,
Great.
good job. Good job.
Did.
Because
They did
here's
not.
what I
They
want.
did not.
They didn't stop? No.
No.
Even when you had the gat in the hand?
No, that was at the point they did. I
Okay,
actually told
stop.
them, as they were advancing towards me, I told them to stop
Okay.
several times.
And they ignored your command,
They did.
and then you said, I'm not joking.
It's like, actually, for real, stop.
Actually, for real.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I'm not kidding. You're gonna stop. Yeah.
On a serious note, I want so badly for someday for there to be a court hearing, and in the record it says defendant yelled Shazam
That would be fantastic.
before producing firearm.
We're about 25 minutes in now, so we got to move on from this. But there are two things, guys. If you are listening to this or watching this show and you're like, oh man, I probably need to brush up my skills or brush up my knowledge, we've got an Arm Living DVD. And Zach, hit the Zach cam real quick. I know there's a sale right now, but when this airs on the podcast thing, can you make it still there so people can get 50% off of that?
I can extend the 50% off
Just
for
for
the
the
Arm
Arm
Living
Living.
DVDs until, when does it go up, Wednesday or Monday?
Wednesday. So
Wednesday?
until this goes up.
Friday.
Yeah,
Let's say Friday.
So
Give
go
plenty
to
of time.
shopsotg.com, get the Arm Living DVD. Zach's going to make sure that there is a 50% off thing for you guys because if you end up in a position like Robert, we want you to have the knowledge as well. And then also USCCA was nice enough to reach out to us and they said, hey, we know what's going on with Professor Paul. So what we're going to do is we're going to send you 45% of every single membership that you send us for an entire year. So if you go sign up for USCCA and use the text SOTG to 87222 or go to studentthegun.com/USCCA, every one of you that signs up is going to get the coverage that Robert had. You had the elite level, I believe, right? Correct?
I do. Yes, I have the elite level. I still do.
Yeah, and I just signed up, my wife, Alex, and I, for that exact thing so that we're covered as well. It's very affordable. So go to studentthegun.com/USCCA. You'll get the coverage that Robert's got and I've got and my wife's got, and then you'll also send 45% of your membership to Professor Paul.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, and Robert, thank you very much for joining us today, for telling us your story, and for helping other people. And you know, a wise man learns from his actions. A wiser man learns from the actions of others. And it's not an easy situation. It's a difficult situation. That's why we reach out to other people to help us, because if you try and lift the entire load yourself, it's going to crush you.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's going to crush you.
Jules, I did see your comment. Will you send a picture, send it to the Student of the Gun page, just put it in there so we can post it up.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what time is it? I'm going to tell you what time it is.
And
it's
real quick admin thing. Zach, if you want to disconnect from Robert, that's cool. Robert, if you want to stay on, that's cool too.
You're just going to be small now.
Yeah.
All right, what do we do every single Wednesday? Well, I'll tell you what we do. We do a Brownell's Bullet Points Guns and Gear segment, and today is no exception. And, of course, our favorite rock and roll band, Madison Rising, has provided us with the intro.
And which segment was this again?
Oh, jeez.
I'm doing things.
Yeah, it's War by Madison Rising is the song.
Right,
it's Brownell's Bullet Points. That was a good fade. Thank you.
Yeah, all right.
You gotta
God
give me a little more breathing
bless.
room between
Red dots,
doing things.
MOA,
A
and
milk
magnifiers.
cow. I don't know what's going on over here, Jared, but this MacBook
Here.
screen keeps blanking out. It keeps blanking out, and I don't know why.
There you go.
All right, so we're going to say I don't need that. I got my
Okay.
phone. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about it's Brownell's Bullet Points, Guns and Gear. We're going to talk about red dots, MOAs, and magnifiers. This is a question that actually came up recently. They're like, what kind of a red dot should I get? I don't care. The good news for you is if you go to a website like brownells.com and you look for a mini red dot, a 1-to-1 red dot, or whatever, there's a ton of them out there. And
Like a literal ton?
a metric ton, actually. If you go to the Brownells warehouse, you will find a metric ton of red dots. But the good news to you as the consumer is there are so many good products available today that it's kind of hard to go wrong. Now, you do get what you pay for. If you think you're going to go to a gun show and pay $50 for a red dot sight, you're buying a toy. I'm sorry to hurt your feelings. You're like, I found this one. It's $49 at a gun show. It works great. Okay, it works great on your airsoft gun. Congratulations. If you put it on a real gun and bang it around in the field, it's probably not going to work that great. Here's what I will tell you. You can spend in the neighborhood of $189 to $210 to $250, $249 and get a good functional working red dot optic. This is a 1-to-1 non-magnified red dot optic. And then you say, okay, I went to a website, I went to brownells.com, and they've got a bunch of them. What should I buy? And my question to you is going to be, what are you going to put it on? Are you going to put it on a rifle? If you're going to put it on a rifle and you want to zero it at 100 yards, you need a small dot. MOA is minute of angle. And red dots they can be 1, 2, 6, 9. And what that means is that dot will appear to be that large at 100 yards. So, easy peasy. A 6 MOA dot, when you put it on a piece of paper if you're trying to zero that thing at 100 yards, the dot's going to look like it's 6 inches across. All right? It's going to basically blot out your entire bullseye. And that's fine if you don't plan to do precision shooting. Now, if you think I may need to do some precision shooting or whatever, you're going to want a smaller dot.
Before we get too far onto here, it's great.
What's great?
For helicopter hunting? Holographic stuff.
Yeah,
we learned
the
that.
EOTech.
Yeah.
Not
magnified.
Yeah, the non-magnified EOTech optic. See, what's unique about the EOTech is it is a projected hologram. The sight that you see is actually projected from the base up onto the window.
Yeah.
So there's really nothing on the window. It's just projecting it.
It's
and
magic.
The circle in the dot, that's the one thing that EOTech has had above other optics for a long time, is the circle that is 65 MOA, which appears to be 65 inches, 100 yards. But the dot in the center is a true 1. It's a true 1 MOA. With inexpensive or less expensive optics, it's kind of hard to get a small dot because it takes more in the manufacturing process to do that. So if you're going to put one on a pistol or if you're going to put one on a shotgun, you don't need a small dot. For a handgun, if you're going to put a mini red dot on a handgun and you have a 3 or a 4 MOA or even a 6 MOA dot, it's not that big of a deal because you're shooting stuff that's only 20 yards away, 10 yards away, 15 yards away. It doesn't seem like it's that big. You put the dot on the target, bang, 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 and you're good to go. Same thing with a shotgun. Get on a shotgun, you shoulder that thing, and you're shooting a target that's 17 yards away. Boom. No big deal. So when it comes to choosing an MOA red dot or red dot MOA, if you plan to shoot it farther, you need a smaller dot for more precision. That's just the way it is. Now, the other question was magnifiers. Should I get one of these 3-power magnifiers that rotate on or flip off or whatever? And the answer is it depends. What do you plan to do with the gun? A lot of you guys might want to compete in 3-gun or what have you. If you're playing a game and you're going to have to engage targets from 50 yards out to 300 yards, then yeah, you're like, oh, the 50-yard ones, I don't need a thing. I just ding, 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 and then I have to lay down and shoot targets at 300. I'll flip that thing up and boom, 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 and put them down. Great, fantastic. What I will tell you, if you're going to set something up like that, you need to practice with it.
Yeah.
You need to get some practice in, or maybe you're doing something like you're hunting predators, coyotes or varmints or whatever. Maybe you're out there doing varmint or predator hunting, and for the close-up stuff, you just need a 1 MOA dot and you're good to go. But maybe they're a couple hundred yards away. You throw out the magnifier, you're good. So the good news to you guys out there is there are a lot of quality red dot optics out there, tons. Do you need a magnifier? Depends on how far you want to shoot. And the big question, as far as what MOA dot should I get, is what are you putting it on? Are you putting it on a handgun, shotgun, rifle? And some people, maybe you're putting it on an RCP, a rifle caliber pistol, and you're going to zero that joker at 50 yards, and you're going to call it good. Okay, great. There you go. Just make an informed decision.
Now, do you have, I don't know if we have time to do this, but what I would like to do is kind of go through some of what you teach in the precision rifle class. Precision rifle, the spirit of the rifleman.
I don't have time to talk about that now.
Can you give like 2 or 3, maybe 4 bullet points? Like if I come with a rifle and a scope that I've never touched before, what's the first thing that I should do?
Oh, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put you on paper at 100 yards and see where you are, so you can check and make sure everything's good. People say, well, how big of a scope do I need? And the magnification of the optic is based on how far you anticipate shooting. The scope doesn't make the gun more or less accurate. It just gives you a better view of your target. Right. If you're shooting animals, you absolutely have to verify and have a good view of what you're shooting. You have to be able to, have target clarification. But the fact of the matter is you can have target clarification with a 5-power scope if you're shooting 100, 150, 200 yards. So you don't necessarily need a huge scope. And also the other thing you need to understand or realize that the lower the power, the easier or faster it is to get on target.
To acquire the target. Yeah.
The higher the power, the longer it takes to get on target, because any movement in that rifle is going to be magnified by that scope.
Yep.
So if you plan to just throw the rifle and you're walking along, you're going to throw it up in your shoulder, and you've got a 20-power scope on that thing, it's going to be a disaster for you. That's why people use lower power optics.
Yeah, all right. And I can speak from experience from the class. I know that we had students come in that had never shot past 100 yards, and by the end of the class, you had got them up to speed, and they were able to ding the 1,000-yard target.
Yeah, some
which
of them
was
were
impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of them were able to get out to 1,000 yards. So, Frog Lube does what?
Makes your things minty fresh.
That's right. Frog Lube is a U.S. veteran-owned company. It's a bio-based product. It's non-petroleum. It won't hurt your optics, your ammunition, won't hurt your electronics. And if you go to froglube.com, you can click on the Pro Shop tab, which is up there in the corner. Enter the code SOTG, save money. Money, 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 save it. Century Arms is the sweetest melon arms maker in the U.S. of A. They have a plethora of firearms, handguns, and rifles. Would you say that they have a plethora?
They have a plethora.
They have a plethora. I'd like to know if someone says that, if they know what a plethora is. But you can find out more by going to centuryarms.com. Duracoat, because life is too short to...
have an ugly gun.
Have an ugly gun. That's right. Life is too short to have an ugly gun. You don't want to have one. I don't want to have one. Go to
Did we mention the promo code at Frog Lube?
Yeah, SOTG.
Okay, I was telling Zach something.
Boop.
And also Siri's listening to me. So
shh, Siri.
Stop listening.
Stop spying on me. No, Duracoat Firearm Finishes is going to help you not have an ugly gun. They've got slightly darker black. That's right, the official student of the gun color. They've got olive drab. They've got Durachrome, Duragold, Duradyes. They got Dura everything.
I was looking through pictures from 2018 NRA, and I saw Steve with a Durachrome jacket on.
Yes.
I was like, that guy.
Yeah, there you go. Steve and his crazy, cray jackets. Then Debbie just loves those. She says, before we go to lunch, you're taking that jacket off.
Yeah.
If you go to Duracoat Firearm Finishes and you go to their camo and templates, or I think it's designs and camo tab, you can open that, and right there in front of your face is a Fighting Solves Everything gun tattoo. It's $5, or you can get a official Student of the Gun tattoo, and you can put that on your gun and drive on. So check those guys out at Duracoat Firearm Finishes. Last but not least on our list, a fan favorite, SWAT Fuel wants you to have a stronger body and a sharper mind. Now, today, get on it. Go to SWATfuel.com, use the promo code SOTG, and they will help you out.
They will, and we actually have an order of the protein and some 40 cal coming in pretty soon. It should be here. Oh, today's the end of the week, so the beginning of next week sometime.
Is today Friday?
Yeah.
Oh.
As we record this live, those of you that are listening when this drops on the podcast, it is not Friday, so don't get confused.
Don't get confused.
Yes.
All right, Alex, talk.
My wife. She's going to talk a little bit now.
Attention, new listeners. We produced a complimentary online training course called 7 Training Tips That Could Save Your Life. Get instant access by joining the Student Lounge for free at studentofthegun.com. Do you watch Student of the Gun TV, read the blog, and follow us on Facebook? If you answered no to any of these questions, you are wrong, but you can easily fix yourself. Go to studentofthegun.com to find everything SOTG.
Dangerous by Madison Rising. That's right. That's the official theme song of Student of the Gun Homeroom, which is brought to you by our good friends at Crossbreed Holsters. If it wasn't for Crossbreed, you wouldn't be listening to this right now. So you're welcome.
Somebody tag Nathan.
Tag Nathan. All right. So if you use the promo code SOTG18 when you shop at crossbreedholsters.com, you're going to save money, whether it is a Super Tuck Deluxe or the fill it in the blank here, the new one.
Freedom Carry?
No, not Freedom Carry.
What are you talking about?
The Reckoning.
Oh, the Reckoning.
Yeah, the Reckoning. Or the Purse Defender or the Bedside Backup or whatever, or a cool belt like I'm wearing right now. I'm wearing one of their belts right now. Check out and use SOTG18. You're going to save some money. You're going to be a happy camper because they're a good company. They're a family-owned company. Like, let's see, who's a family-owned company? Frog Lube is a family-owned company. Century is. Duracoat is definitely a family-owned company. SWAT Fuel is. They're a family-owned and run company.
I think all of our sponsors
and
are.
Brownells, well, Brownells is a big company.
It's also a family.
But they started, the Brownells family started Pete Brownell,
in a garage.
Frank Brownell.
And look at them now.
There was one of those. They are, Brownells is actually an American success story, legit. They're one of the ones that guy had an idea, Grandpa, not Frank's dad, had an idea, and he started in his basement. And then they moved from the basement to a one-room shop, and then Frank took over, and then Pete took over. It's a family business, and they're good people. So we support them, and they support us. And, of course, Crossbreed Holsters is another American success story. Started in a garage with an idea, and now they're trying to keep you dangerous on demand. Now, how can you be dangerous on demand? Now, we believe as Americans, with that Bill of Rights and Constitution and all that stuff, we believe that we should carry the tools on our bodies that would allow us to stop evil humans when evil humans want to do bad things. Not everyone in the world thinks that. As a matter of fact, some people in the world think that it's the exact opposite, that the way you stop evil is to punish the good people of the world. And you're like, what? That doesn't mean. I don't believe that, Paul. Well, we got a story here from the BBC.com. BBC News. Asia, from the Asia desk. It was the heat of the moment, telling me what my heart meant. You like that? That's from the Asia desk right there. No one? Not Robert, not Jared, no one.
I get it.
I'm just going to keep singing Asia until you freaks.
I think Robert is muted. His lips are moving, but I can't hear him.
All right. So what happened on Easter? Well, a bunch of some missionaries from the religion of peace and brotherhood walked into Christian churches in Sri Lanka and detonated bombs and killed 250 people and injured scores more. That's bad. Okay. So what is the solution to stopping suicide bombers? Now, keep in mind that on Easter Sunday, Muslim missionaries killed 250 people, injured scores others by walking into churches and hotels with bombs. Well, here's the solution. They figured it out. The government in Sri Lanka has figured out how to combat terrorism. Sri Lanka attacks. Public urge to surrender their swords and knives. Story 4 May 2019. Sri Lankan authorities have called on the public to surrender swords and large knives amid heightened security concerns following the Easter Sunday attacks. Police said knives used for everyday legal activities should not be included in the handover. Hundreds of weapons have been seized since the 21 April attacks, where more than 250 people were killed in coordinated suicide bombings which targeted Christian churches. They didn't put the word Christian in there because we're just going to say churches. Remember when this went down and the American left, the liberals and Democrats tweeted about Easter Sunday worshipers?
Yeah, not
they didn't use the word Christian. Who's worshiping on Easter Sunday? The Muslim missionaries are worshiping on Easter Sunday. The Buddhists are worshiping on Easter Sunday. We know the Jews aren't. Okay? Who exactly was in these churches that got blown up by Muslim missionaries on Easter Sunday? In addition to weapons, police spokesman Ruwan Gunasekara called on people in possession of police or camouflage uniforms to hand them in and turn them over to the nearest police station. So, here is the genius solution that the government of Sri Lanka has come up with. They're attacked. Muslim missionaries, bombs. So, they've decided that in order to stop suicide bombers, they're going to get the people to surrender their knives and swords. Now, maybe it's me, but I'm not really digging the correlation. Maybe if they said, hey, we need everyone out there to turn in your bomb vests, your explosives and bomb vests. You know, if they said, hey, if you've got bomb-making material sitting around your house, you know, you got like a vest and a bunch of, you know, Comp B or C4 or whatever, you know, TNT, we need you to turn that in to your local police department. Ball bearings, nails, screws, and stuff like that. Shouldn't they be getting people to turn in their bomb-making materials? So, somebody help me out here.
Well, you could melt the metal down and use it as shrapnel.
Shrapnel is a very specific thing. There's fragmentation.
Knowledge does not matter. Okay, they can cut those swords down,
flaccid,
and they could use them as shrapnel.
Okay, so
he doesn't understand clearly. I mean, geez.
So when told that the Islamic State was behind it, they're like, well, you know how we can stop the Islamic State of ISIS in Syria or Iraq and Syria? Here's what we can do. We'll just get all the peasants to turn in their big knives.
Well, because then the Islamic State won't steal them and use them as bombs to blow up
Can
stuff.
anybody else help me out here? Am I losing my mind? Or is this insanity? And you say, but Paul, this cannot possibly be a true story. They can't possibly think that, well, what do we know about socialist governments? It's security theater. Why? And the picture, okay, the picture that they used in this is a dude in an army uniform or some kind of freaky uniform standing in front of a church holding a rifle. Because that's what we do. Muslim missionaries blow us up, run us over with trucks, you know, walk into a movie or a theater in France, they walk into a business office in France and gun people down, and then we get all the cops to walk around, stand outside, stand on street corners holding guns. Look at me. I'm keeping you safe. But yeah, those people are already dead. Yeah, but here I am, standing on the street corner, keeping you safe. So all we need to keep people safe is the popo out standing on the street corners with their rifles after the fact, and then will look at the people and say, well, in order for you to be safe from terrorism, we need you to surrender all of your guns. Or, well, they don't have guns in Sri Lanka, so your knives. What? We're living in crazy upside down world. Instead of the government coming out and saying, hey, I got an idea. How about we crack down on Muslim missionaries blowing people up in churches? Is that an idea? Oh, that would be racist and xenophobic, and that would be mean. You can't punish the people that are actually committing the crimes. You need to punish the people. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the world that we live in.
I just got a text message from our new buddy, Jeremiah. He says, a wolf attacks a sheep, the sheep dies. Other sheep observe the killing and notice that teeth kill sheep. So the sheep remove their own teeth for their own safety.
That's right. That is exactly a perfect analogy. It's like if we can just disarm all of the innocent law-abiding people, then the bad people will stop doing bad things. Or not. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. That's all the time we have today. Thank you very much for joining us for another episode of Student of the Gun Radio. If you joined us live, if you didn't join us live, that is an option for you on YouTube or Facebook, or you can just listen at your leisure in the future. Remember, you're a beginner once,
but you are indeed a student for life.
We appreciate your reviews. If you haven't left a review or updated yours recently, head on over to Facebook, iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or your favorite podcast player to voice your opinion. Don't forget to join us at the Student Lounge, a place for like-minded individuals to learn, connect, and support each other. No chicanery will be tolerated. Remember to check studentofthegun.com daily for new, free content and giveaways. Watch, listen, read, shop, and connect at studentofthegun.com. Are you a social butterfly? Connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for new content each and every day at Student of the Gun. Watch Student of the Gun TV and videos from our trusted partners on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Chromecast, and even AirPlay. Go to studentofthegun.com for direct links, and remember, you're a beginner once, a student for life.